of theories. Okay. Mercantilism, absolute advantage, comparative advantage, right? Neoclassical में क्या आता है? Factor endowment, that was given by Heckscher Olin. While absolute advantage, who gave that theory? Adam Smith, correct. And what about comparative advantage? Ricardo. हाँ, तो classical economic theories were like around 17th, 18th century before that. Then neoclassical were in the 20th century, earlier 20th century. And after the 1950s, the theories that we have come under modern theories. So basically, just a small recap of what we discussed. We looked at different kinds of theories, including mercantilism, absolute advantage, comparative advantage, and neoclassical theories like Heckscher-Olin theory of factor endowment, and also some modern theories. Can you give me some examples of modern theory, Bharat? Okay, new trade, country similarity, product life cycle theory. Great, fine. So at least you remember something. Good. Okay, so we have looked at different theories of international trade, and also we have discussed some factors that impact international trade. Do you remember all of that? मौसम याद है? Okay, economic factors, political, legal factors, right? So So these were some of the factors that we had discussed: economic factors, political factors, legal, cultural, technological. All of them have an impact on international business and trade. And when you're trying to conduct any kind of international business, you would have to take these into account. Then we had looked at different theories, which we've already done. Let's now continue from where we left off. So broadly, so if you are planning to start any kind of new international business, you have different ways, or any company is looking to engage in international business and trade, there are various ways, including export and import of goods and commodities and services. Apart from this, they can go for licensing agreements, franchisee agreements. They can do a joint venture with different companies, or they can acquire any particular company abroad. Right, they can even go for this foreign direct investment, set up physical infrastructure, manufacturing facilities in different countries. So export import, we all know, we've already discussed in detail that India is a exporter of services, IT services, of pharma commodities, pharma drugs and all. India also exports spices and all, right? Gems and jewelry. We import oil and electronic goods and all. We've discussed about import export. Licensing, can you give me some example of licensing? Okay, any example that you can think of licensing? Microsoft? किसको? Okay, fine. So basically licensing is when you are giving your technology or your product or your brand to some other entity to use it in return for some fee, some commission or royalty. Royalty पता है ना? Do you understand the meaning of royalty? So depending on the percentage of sales, you get certain commissions on that. So it could be transfer of technology, or use of goods and services, or some intellectual property. All of this would be coming under licensing. Like an example would be the deal between Starbucks and Nescafe. So Nescafe got the rights to use the products of Starbucks globally. So earlier on, Starbucks was mainly limited to US, but then they wanted to expand to other markets. They looked for other avenues, and Nescafe was present all around. So they gave them rights to use their brand and their certain products worldwide to sell them from their different outlets, and that is how that was one way through which Starbucks was earning. They were getting royalties on the sale of the products and all, coffee beans and everything, and Nescafe was also making a certain profit because of that. They were getting the brand name of Starbucks. So licensing can be in many ways. You can give rights to intellectual property, or maybe you have some copyright or trademark and everything, you can give them certain other country rights. Otherwise it can be use of goods and services, or certain brand value and all those things. How is it different from franchising? Do you know the difference between these two, between licensing and franchising? How are they different? Okay. Okay, right. Fine. That is one thing. One major difference is that instead of giving access to certain products or services or IPR, you are also providing them the entire brand name and everything. So brand name, trademark, everything you are providing. Apart from this, you are also giving them guidance to start from scratch and build up the business. So you are giving your own expertise and your knowledge and everything to some other entity. Examples of franchisee, you all know it. It could be McDonald's, Domino's, all these different entities have given out franchisee outlets. Even brokerage firms give out franchisee, like Motilal Oswal and all. If you want to open you want to become a broker, you can open a franchisee of some other broker as well. Right, so franchisee we all know. Then joint ventures, we already discussed examples of this, Maruti Suzuki. Any other example? Do you know? Huh? Any particular example that you can think of any joint venture? So Jaguar Land Rover का हुआ था. So there can be different. इससे फायदा क्या होता है? What is the benefit of doing joint venture? Correct. Good job. So you get special product. Okay, correct. Right. Good. So basically there are many benefits. You get access to new markets. You can get the brand value also of certain other company. Maybe there's a Suzuki. If it went into joint venture with Maruti, they got access to Indian markets, to their customers, and also to the brand value of Maruti in India. Right. FDI is setting up physical infrastructure facilities for long-term projects. I told you the difference between FDI, FPI and FII. Do you remember? Ankush, can you please tell difference between FII, FPI and FDI? FPI, how is it different from FDI? किसमें? Long term is for in FDI, FPI? FDI, right. Good. So basically, if you are doing for long term investment, going for long term projects, like if Tesla wants to set up a factory in India, or if Apple wants to set up a factory in India, they would be not coming here only for 1 or 2 months, they will be staying here for 1 or 2 decades or maybe more. That is for long term physical infrastructure, setting up of manufacturing facilities, buying these equipments and machineries and everything. This is would be example of FDI, while FII would be, or FPI would be for short term. It's also known as hot money, smart money, which keeps on flowing very fast between different countries. So if a certain investor like Warren Buffett wants to invest in shares of Reliance, that would be example of FII or FPI. FPI, because FPI is a broader concept, while this is a subset. FII is a subset of FPI. So if institutions are investing in equities and in capital markets, including debt markets and all, those would be examples of FII, but that is also an example of FPI. However, if a certain individual is investing, that would come under FPI, foreign portfolio investment, not institutional investment, right? So FDI is for long-term projects. That also gives you certain advantages. What are the advantages of FDI? Okay. Okay. Good. तो एक तो दोनों कंट्रीज के लिए बेनिफिट है. सपोज US company setting up a plant or factory in India, that would lead to more investments and job creation, overall increase in GDP of the country. However, if that would also be beneficial for the other country, right? They are investing abroad, and those companies can grow bigger. They have access to other markets, right? Achha, do you know the difference between GDP and GNP? You must have studied in economics GDP and GNP, gross domestic product and gross national product. Are you aware of the difference between these two? You should know. Okay. National, how is it different from domestic? Okay, great. So if suppose some NRIs are earning income staying in US, maybe an NRI doctor has gone abroad and he is earning from US, that would come under GDP or GNP? GNP, national, because he is an Indian national. However, if you suppose take a Nigerian who is working in India and he is also producing some goods and services, then that would be example of GDP, not national product. So basically GDP is the production of the overall value of goods and services being produced in a country in a period of time, in a particular period of time, usually 1 year or 1 quarter, right? However, if the GNP is the value of goods and services being produced by the national citizens of that country, they may be staying abroad, but they are still contributing to the national product. Fine. So these are different ways that companies can explore, different ways in which they can enter other foreign markets, and which one they should be choosing will depend on multiple factors. What do you think will help them decide which is the best suitable model for them? On what factors will their choice depend upon? Scale. Okay, scale of business, right? If they are operating at a very large scale, they can go for directly FDI, or they can wholly own a particular, they can buy out a certain company. Otherwise, if they are operating at a smaller scale, they can either go for franchisee or for licensing or other ways. It would also depend on what is their outlook, how long are they operating for, the time horizon and everything. If they are staying there for a long term, then FDI is the best possible way. Otherwise, if they are not so serious about the market, they are just exploring it initially, then they can look at other models like franchising and licensing. So a lot of other things there, how much intellectual property they have, right? That would also be a contributing factor. So multiple factors will help them decide which model is the best for them. Right, and they also need to consider all these other factors, like what is the domestic environment within their country, what is the global environment, what is the foreign environment. So if a company is looking to enter a foreign market, they would look at what are the policies within the country domestically. Based on that, they'll decide whether to firstly go outside or to stay within the country, and secondly, if they plan to go outside, what kind of method would be the best suited for them, depending on a host of factors, including the tax policies, the different kinds of duties and all, the legal structures and everything. The domestic policies would impact a lot. Similarly, the policies of the foreign government, whichever markets they are looking to explore, they would have to go into details of what kind of policies are there, whether they are allowing, what kind of partnerships they are allowing. Like in case of FDI, certain sectors have limitations to how much FDI percentage can be there in a particular country. Like in certain sectors there is a limit of 49%, certain sectors 74%. Certain sectors have even 100%. Depending on the kind of sector, depending on what kind of company it is, which sector it is operating in, government has different kinds of limits to which company can invest in a other foreign company or in a foreign sector. Fine. So global environment also will play a crucial role, including what is there in unit 2 and 4. Do you remember what is there in 2 and 4? I told you earlier on. So including all of that, so institutions like IMF, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, what kind of policies they are having. Similarly, the regional trade groupings, that is there in unit 2. So you have SAARC, NAFTA, all those things, trade agreements and everything, World Trade Organization, what kind of policies they are having. So these will play a crucial role, and also geopolitical dynamics, like what kind of international relations are there between countries. So certain countries have more friendly relations, certain countries try to avoid dealing with each other. Can you think of any example for India of countries which are having very good relations with India, international relations? Russia? Okay. Russia and Ukraine में what is the stance of India? You know? Neutral. They are playing, वो हर चीज़ में इंडिया यही करती है, we are trying to play it diplomatically, but there are certain countries like US which we are enjoying good relations with. However, countries like China, Pakistan, we tend to avoid dealing with them. You must have heard about that ban on Chinese apps. That was a security concern. So you also have to take into account these security concerns while looking at international trade and business. Governments have to consider all of that. Fine. Now, companies also consider these other aspects while investing or dealing with foreign countries, other countries, including ethical considerations. You must have heard of this term called social responsibility, CSR and all, corporate social responsibility. Are you aware? Yes, Mausam? What is that? Okay. What is your name? Your name? I'm seeing you for the first time. Did you come earlier for the earlier classes or no? Okay, fine. So basically, companies are also looking at, nowadays this ethical concern has become very important. Even if you maybe because you're finance students, you might be considering CFA and all, Chartered Financial Analyst. So those courses also pay a lot of emphasis on ethical aspects. They have a separate paper on ethics. So ethics nowadays is becoming very crucial for all companies, for even in finance. Whether you are doing things in an ethical manner, you should not be harming the environment. Your policy should not be having any negative impact on the society. In terms of, you should be doing your goods and services that you are producing, so should be beneficial for the overall social welfare. Maybe you might be contributing CSR responsibility, corporate social responsibility is now mandated by law that companies have to contribute 2% of their annual profits for CSR activities. So any company which is, especially big companies, they need to contribute 2% of their profits to CSR every single year. Meaning they can either work towards, say, women empowerment, or they can take up other social causes like education for all, or maybe environment friendly things and all. So they can take up various issues and contribute certain funds to that sector, or maybe to some NGOs or certain organizations or foundations. So ethical concerns are very important, that even your labor policies, that your labor, you should not be exploiting your labor. and you should be giving them maintaining their proper rights and all. Environmental sustainability, corporate governance. Do you understand the meaning of this term called corporate governance? Do you know, Aditya, any idea? Corporate governance? Yash? No? Huh? Can you repeat? What? Hierarchy of company. Okay. Corporate governance is basically that you are maintaining transparency within your system. So your investors, your shareholders and all, they are not getting cheated. Everything is transparent, your policies, even your board of directors are independent, you are having independent auditors. All those things are very important, that every company should maintain certain ethics, and they should be doing things in a more transparent manner. Because if you're hiding facts, then the shareholders may get cheated as a result of this. So maintaining transparency in the overall functioning of the corporate body or entity is part of corporate governance. So this includes having proper checks and balances within the system, having say proper independent auditors and independent board of directors. All these things are a part of corporate governance. And every country has different ethical standards. Certain countries are, you need to abide by all the laws very correctly, and ethical concerns play a very significant role, especially in the developed countries. In undeveloped world or in African countries and all, this is still, ethical concerns are not playing such a big role. Fine. Social responsibility, welfare of local communities. Fine, this is fine, very clear to understand. Then next thing, green trade is one more thing, which is again related to environment friendly. You should, your international business should be done in a manner that is not harming the environment, and you should be following sustainable practices. Do you know of this carbon policy? Carbon credits and all? Carbon footprint kam se kam hona chahiye. So basically all the companies, even now the countries have started giving out these carbon credits and all. So companies which are harming the environment, they have to get certain, they have to purchase some carbon credits. They have to pay something extra because they are harming the environment. So this kind of thing is also emerging. And nowadays, as a result of this global warming and all the climate concerns and all, in these green trade has become a significant part of international business. So increasing awareness, companies are expected to adopt sustainable practices, fine. Government and international organizations, fine, CSR. So this is one more aspect that we have to refer to, which is the distributional issues. This again is a part of Unit 1. You need to be aware of what are the distribution issues. We've looked at all the positive aspects of international business. We know there are many benefits that are there to international business. However, there are certain drawbacks as well. There can be certain negative points of conducting international business or trade. What do you think are the negative aspects? Firstly, tell me the positives. Do you remember any positive things? Yes, please. Economic growth बढ़ती है. Good. Your name? Louder? Weber. Okay, good. So Weber is saying it, increases overall economic growth. What else do you think are the positives of doing international business? Employment generate होती है. Good. What else? Excess production अगर किसी country में हो रहा है, that can be channelized properly. और किसी में deficit है तो वहाँ पे जा सकता है. This is one more thing. Overall investments बढ़ती हैं international business से. जब investment बढ़ेंगी तो overall more production of goods and services होगा, employment opportunities बढ़ेंगी, overall incomes बढ़ेंगी, purchasing power बढ़ेगी. फाइन, गवर्नमेंट को भी रेवेन्यूज़ मिलते हैं थ्रू कस्टम्स एंड ऑल, तो बेनिफिट्स तो हैं, बट व्हाट आर द नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट्स? इनकम डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, हाँ, दैट इज़ द पॉइंट वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग. What do you mean by income distribution? What kind of impact does international business have on income distribution? Yes, Vaibhav, any idea? Agar if two countries are engaging in international trade, will it have any impact on the income distribution? Okay. ओके ओके, जो कंट्री एक्सपोर्ट करी है उसका फ़ायदा होगा, इंपोर्ट करी है उसका नहीं होगा. दैट इज़ व्हाट वी डोंट डू यू रिमेंबर द थ्योरी ऑफ कंपैरेटिव एडवांटेज, अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट? हाँ, तो अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट तो बच रही है ना उसकी कंट्री जो इंपोर्ट करी है उसकी भी, तो बेनिफिट तो दोनों को हो रहा है, बट दिस इनकम डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में क्या फ़र्क हो रहा है? दैट इज़ व्हाट आई एम आस्किंग यू. By international business, is it having any impact on income distribution within a country, within sectors, within anything? Okay. Anyone? So basically, if certain sectors are engaging more in international trade, से इंडिया में जेम्स एंड ज्वेलरी का हो रहा है एक्सपोर्ट्स, या आईटी का हो रहा है, जिसका भी हो रहा है, सो दीज सेक्टर्स आर गेटिंग एक्स्ट्रा रेवेन्यू एंड दे कैन जनरेट मोर एम्प्लॉयमेंट फॉर लोकल पीपल, बट certain sectors may not be involved in international trade. Those sectors will be lagging behind. कि यहाँ पे तो उनके पास रेवेन्यू भी आ रहा है, या फिर जो इवन जो इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं वो भी उनका भी बिजनेस चल ही रहा है ना जो इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, बट जो इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड में जो सेक्टर्स इंगेज ही नहीं है, तो उस केस में दैट कैन क्रिएट अ प्रॉब्लम फॉर दैट सेक्टर. उस सेक्टर में जो भी लोग एम्प्लॉयड हैं, देयर अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ में बी लॉस्ट एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ दिस. Their employment opportunities may be lost, their incomes may be reduced as a result of this. And one more problem is that suppose ट्रेड हो रहा है किसी एक, अब टेक्नोलॉजी की चीज़ों का बहुत ज़्यादा ट्रेड हो रहा है, तो अब और चीज़ें लैग बिहाइंड होंगी, एंड बिकॉज दिस इज़ रिक्वायरिंग मच मोर स्किल्ड मैन पावर, दीज सेक्टर्स रिक्वायर मोर स्किल्ड पावर एंड नॉट एवरी वन इज़ प्रॉपरली स्किल्ड. दैट कॉजेज, if these people are not able to upskill themselves, they will lag behind. Their employment will be lost as a result of this. And one more thing is that suppose international investments आ रही हैं, so who will get more investments? Big companies like Reliance, Ambani को ज़्यादा मिलेगा, या कोई छोटा? If I want to start a small business, I won't be getting so much capital from abroad, right? So if some small enterprise wants to start a business, they will not be getting so much funding internationally. Big companies, Ambani has so many connections, he can easily call them up and get investments, but I cannot, even if I start a small business. So this will also cause income distribution issues. So rich will keep on getting richer. The people who are engaging in big, they already have established businesses, they can easily engage in trade, while people who are just starting out will find a lot of difficulty in getting international investments. So with respect to investments, also with respect to trade as well, trade में भी redistribution ऐसी हुआ कि certain sectors which are much more prominently engaged in trade, they will benefit as a result of this, and people employed within the sectors will also get more opportunities, but other people who are unable to upskill themselves, who are unable to keep pace with the new technologies and all, will start losing their jobs and they will be left behind. तो इसमें this is called it can create winners and losers within countries. So between countries we have seen कि both importers and exporters can gain as a result of trade due to opportunity cost, due to comparative advantage. However, within countries it can create a lot of income distribution issues. So certain industries or workers may suffer due to increased competition, while others benefit from access to new markets and resources. तो तभी तो वो गवर्नमेंट की कुछ पॉलिसीज़ होती हैं, गवर्नमेंट हैज़ टू समटाइम्स इंटरवीन And what can the government do to prevent if certain sector is being very adversely affected by this international business and trade? What can the government do? टैरिफ लगा सकते हैं, राइट, कस्टम्स लगा सकते हैं, या फिर मे बी उसे प्रोटेक्शनिज्म बोलते हैं. दे आर ट्राइंग टू प्रोटेक्ट देयर डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्रीज फ्रॉम इंटरनेशनल कॉम्पिटिशन. तो दे कैन you know put tariffs, or they can put quotas and all, limitations on the quantity. Fine. So the process of adjusting can be costly for certain sectors, leading to job losses, economic disruption, labor market frictions. So displaced workers cannot easily find jobs in expanding sectors because the new jobs require specific skills that need time to be acquired, and then therefore the government and domestic institutions play a very crucial role. In this case, I told you about that theory. Do you remember? Adam Smith की एक theory थी, invisible hand. I told you that, है ना? तो उसमें what was it all about? Exactly. So the theory of invisible hand by Adam Smith said that markets will keep on functioning efficiently even if everyone is being very selfish. He said everyone has to be selfish. You to look after your own interests, and then also the market will keep on functioning efficiently. Why? Because supply and demand will keep on getting changed according to the changing dynamics of the economy. तो जैसे जैसे आप अपने बस अपना इंटरेस्ट देखो, he's saying that you have to be selfish, and still the markets and the economy will function properly. And there is no need for any external intervention. There is an invisible hand which is in the form of supply and demand forces that is guiding the economy in the right direction. That was the earliest theory, classical theory of economics. Yes? So that was the earlier theory of classical economics, and he is known as the father of economics, Adam Smith. Then later on this theory was disputed. I told you about that as well. Who came up with this? Who contradicted this theory? And what was the reason why this was proved wrong? Do you remember? 1929 में क्या हुआ था? Great Depression. Great Depression, when the global economy was contracting, jobs were being lost, and stock markets were also crashing and everything. So that was a very difficult time for the global economy. But so this whole incident proved that not everything can function efficiently all the time. There are certain times when maybe the economy is not doing well, that government has to intervene. So by looking at this Great Depression closely, John Maynard Keynes was another economist who came up with this other theory which said that there is need for government intervention. So not all the time, this Adam Smith's theory will not hold true all the time. When the market demand supply forces are not getting adjusted properly, there is a need for external intervention by the government and domestic institutions. In this case also the same thing applies. So government can intervene in that case. In case of depression, what can the government do? If there is slowdown in the economy, what will the government do? वो तो central bank करेगा ना. That is part of monetary policy. They will cut interest rates which will increase the money supply and overall stimulate the economy. That is a different thing. But I am asking you, what will the government do in case there is slowdown in the economy? Okay, tax rates कम करेगी. Yes, subsidies देगी. Okay, great. So government can do two things. Either they can cut the taxes, direct indirect taxes कम कर दो, अपने आप ही लोगों के पास ज़्यादा पैसा हो जाएगा. They will start demanding more. If they have more purchasing power, they will demand more. That will lead to more production of goods and services. So that is one way, by cutting taxes. Other way is to increase the spending or increase the subsidies. So you can either cut the taxes or increase the spending. Spending किस पे increase करेंगे? They can have different infra projects. जैसे नरेगा है, do you know नरेगा, National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. तो उसमें roads and इन सब में construction में, highways के construction में they engage labor and pay them on daily basis. So that is kind of like an employment guarantee. And if government allocates more funds to this, they are spending more on these kind of projects, that will lead to more employment generation, which will lead to greater purchasing power of people, leading to more demand, leading to more production of goods and services, overall stimulating the economy. So government can do all of these things in case there is a slowdown. In case of protectionism, what can they do? In case there is a problem of income distribution due to international business or trade, what will the government do? Okay, customs बढ़ा सकते हैं, that is one thing. If it is harming the domestic industry and there is too much competition from abroad, maybe US because of technology is able to produce at a very low cost, and they are Indian domestic producers are doing it manually, so they are unable to meet the cost, maybe because of that reason or whatever. That can in that case government can impose quotas or tariffs on import of commodities. That is one thing. They can also do other things, like they may provide support to the affected workers. That is a remedial measure. कि अगर if they cannot suppose impose tariffs, that is maybe a very important commodity for import, and they cannot impose tariffs, they can do some other things. They can help the affected workers as well. They can try to upskill them or give them other opportunities. Again, they can increase the spending as well. Government spending increase होगी, that will lead to more employment generation. So they will also have to reduce barriers to entry and barriers to exit, promote entry and promote exit. So ease of doing business should be promoted. That will also encourage other people who are maybe getting unemployed. They can also start, more people will start businesses, and that will lead to greater employment generation. So those people that are affected, the workers that are affected, can get absorbed in other industries or new upcoming enterprises. They can also promote R&D to so that domestic companies are also able to include new technology in their production process, so as to reduce the cost, and overall they will be able to compete globally. Improving access to credit, so better availability of loans and funds and all, improvement of capital markets, all of these could help domestic distributional issues. And adjustment cost is again the same thing, because it's related to a distributional issue. If certain sectors are getting affected as a result of international business, that is called an adjustment cost. The cost that you need to pay, that countries need to pay when they are promoting international business. So just keep in mind that international business can have positives, but it can have drawbacks as well, especially in terms of distributional issues. Government can also have a focus on poverty alleviation and all. Do you know of any policy by the government which helps to reduce poverty? Any government policy that is working on income distribution or poverty and all? Okay. Right, you are right. Okay, fine. So a lot of policies are there. जैसे EWS वाली वो है, जो you have this quota for EWS, so that also helps in reduction of this gap in income distribution. If people who are maybe lagging behind or are not having enough resources, they can also get equal opportunities as a result of this. So this reservation kind of thing is also there. You have, what else do you have? Even the tax system is built in such a way to try to help the poor section of society. That is, the whole tax system is made to redistribute wealth. However, it does not function properly. That's a different issue. Theoretically, it's supposed to transfer or redistribute wealth, but practically that doesn't really happen. Businesses know all the pros and cons. They know all the loopholes, and they try to take advantage of the whole system. Fine. Tariffs, quotas, subsidies, trade agreements. This we've seen. There are different tools that can be used to control international trade and to control this drawbacks of international trade. Fine. So this we've discussed. Again, we'll go into details of this at the last unit. Today we'll be concluding. We'll be finishing off first unit. We have 1 hour. So in 1 hour we'll be concluding the first unit. Basically, these are different institutions that serve different purposes internationally. I told you the difference between IMF and World Bank. What is that? कौन सा लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए होता है? वर्ल्ड बैंक जो होता है, दैट इज ट्राइंग टू रिड्यूस इनकम डिस्पैरिटी बिटवीन कंट्रीज. तो इट इज गिविंग आउट लोन्स टू underdeveloped countries for long term development and inclusive growth, while IMF is giving short term funds to meet liquidity problems. Fine. So government also plays, these factors also play a crucial role. Whenever somebody is planning to set up an international business, they need to look at what the government is doing, what the other interest groups are doing. So apart from government, we looked at government and trade agreements are there, global trade policies are there, which will impact the kind of business you are engaging in internationally. But apart from this, you also have different interest groups that are giving their own suggestions to the government. So maybe there is the automotive industry. They have their own groups, right? And they can approach the government to reduce the customs on import of automobile spare parts. So they can, every sector or every industry has their own association, and these associations form their policies with respect to international business. And they give their suggestions to the government. They actually put pressure on the government to enforce their suggestions, and finally they try to make business more efficient for their own particular sector. Right. International relations also play a crucial role. We've discussed all of this. So diplomacy, trade, security, all of these are important factors. Sometimes you have to maintain a balance between trade, security and diplomacy, like what India is doing between Russia and Ukraine right now. They are trying to maintain a balance. Similarly with China as well. If we are having, say, security concerns, they are coming to our Ladakh border, and they have already. Have you looked at the Google Maps of India? India की जो territory है, उसमें in Google Maps if you see, Ladakh is not a part of India. They are, it's coming as, it's not a part of Indian territory now. So basically, if China is encroaching on Indian borders, including Ladakh, including northeastern borders, India will try to influence them somehow, try to control or restrict their entry. One is through by sending the army and their defense forces. Other ways could be through international economic relations as well, through international trade. They can, say, ban certain commodities, import of certain commodities from China, or they can ban exports of certain commodities to China. They can, in effect, this international trade can also be used as a tool to control international relations, including security concerns, including diplomatic concerns and all. Fine. So broadly, we have discussed about international trade till now, international business also. There are multiple things that you need to keep in mind when doing international business, including the different factors like economic factors, political, legal, environmental, all these things, technological factors as well. We've also looked at what kind of ways you have, methods you have to enter into international business, including licensing, franchising, including joint ventures, strategic alliances, and import export, obviously, FDI, strategic alliance, subsidiary, acquiring companies and all. Okay, Abhi tak, do you have any questions? I'll give you a short break for 10 minutes, then we'll start. If you have any doubts or questions, you can ask me. Fine. So basically, we have looked at the introduction to international trade and business, including many things. But next thing we'll be doing is Unit 3, that is related to international investment. Unit 2 and 4 are very theoretical in nature. This one is the most interesting actually, international investments. So because you are a finance student, so even compared to trade, this international investments would make much more sense to you. So basically, we'll be looking at different things, how companies look at investing abroad. Today, I'll only give you a brief overview of this Unit 3. Then next time onwards, we'll go into details of Unit 3. Fine. So if somebody wants to invest abroad, what should you be looking at? Firstly, should you invest abroad or should you only invest domestically? I'm asking you personally, if you want to invest, should you invest in India or abroad? Abroad. काफ़ी हैं. Okay. Everyone feels abroad या कोई इंडिया में भी करना चाहिए कैसे? हाँ, अच्छा. Right. Okay. काफ़ी companies इंडिया की भी अच्छी हैं, plus you will have more knowledge about the Indian markets, and if you study that, what is happening in say US markets or in European countries, you may not be aware of each and every development over there. So familiarity is one thing that you need to consider. We are already familiar with the domestic country, and once you start reading about Indian markets, you will gain more knowledge, and you already have the context. Otherwise, you'll have to start from scratch to understand how that economy is functioning and everything. So that is one thing, familiarity. But investing abroad, does it give you certain advantage? What kind of advantage? You said you'll have more opportunities to invest abroad. Many options are there if you want to invest abroad as well. But any other advantage of investing in other countries? Money power. कैसे? Okay, okay. That is one thing. So you are talking about forex and all, है ना? ठीक है. Okay. What else? What about diversification? If you only invest in India and something happens to the domestic economy, or maybe there is a recession or something, so diversification is one more thing that you need to consider. That will give you an advantage. If you invest abroad, you will get the benefits of diversification. Similar kind of things companies also look at. if they are investing in other countries, they look at what kind of returns they can get, what kind of interest rates are going on in the other economy, what kind of risk is there, political risk and everything, the factors that we have discussed, economic, environmental, technological, government policies, political, legal, all kinds of factors they look at while investing in other countries. But more importantly, when they're looking at investments is the concept of risk and return. Whenever we're talking about investments, these two are the most important things. Being finance students, you should know that while investing, risk and returns are the most important things that you have to look at. Do you know the relation between risk and returns? Inversely proportional? Directly proportional? The higher risk, higher return. Okay. Is it always the case if you take on higher risk, you get higher returns? No? Nahi na? So how is this? What is the relation then between risk and return? Can you say higher risk, higher return? If being finance students, you should know, if somebody asks you what is the relation between risk and returns, never say higher the risk, higher the return. You have to say, yes Aditya, inverse. No, inverse तो बिल्कुल ही नहीं है. तो basically it's whenever somebody asks you the relation between risk and returns, it's higher the risk, higher the expected returns. So if you are taking on risk, greater risk, you would expect to get higher returns, but that's not always the case. You may get, maybe you are investing in more volatile assets like stocks, or maybe in small cap companies that would be very risky and your portfolio can be highly volatile. So you may even get negative returns. But if you are taking on greater risk by investing in smaller companies, you would expect to get higher returns. And what is the model that gives you this relation? There is a model in finance. You're in final year, you should be knowing by now. A model is there, the most important model in finance, asset pricing model. Do you remember? CAPM, yes, correct. So CAPM you all know, capital asset pricing model. That is one model which gives you the relation between risks and returns. You should, if you are not aware, you should learn about this, because if you do not know about CAPM, you do not know finance. That's the basic of finance. So according to CAPM, this is the relation. This is apart from time value of money, apart from compounding, which are the building blocks of finance. This model is at the heart or core of finance. So CAPM, capital asset pricing model, gives you the relation expected returns, ER, expected returns are equal to the risk free rate plus beta into RM minus RF. RM is the market return, RF is risk free return, and beta is, what is beta? Systematic risk, measure of systematic risk. There are two kinds of risk, systematic and unsystematic. So do you know the difference? Which is diversifiable? Which one is diversifiable? Yes? Systematic or unsystematic? अच्छा, what is unsystematic risk? First tell me. जिसको कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं, कैसे कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं? ओके, मार्केट और इंस्टीट्यूशंस के थ्रू इफेक्ट होता है? नहीं. दैट इज विच वन? नो. Basically, unsystematic risk is a risk that can be diversified, that can be reduced, and it is specific to one particular company. So maybe you are investing in one company and that company is very volatile, or it may be impacted. Suppose you are investing in a in company like Reliance, that will be impacted by the price of oil also. In their main business is petrochem, so it will be impacted by the price of oil. Similarly, if you are investing in Indian Oil or in HPCL, they will be impacted by the price of oil, crude oil. Fine. So that kind of risk can be diversified. If you invest in, say, some IT company also, you invest in some pharmaceutical company as well, you invest in manufacturing companies, you invest in other kinds of companies, metal stocks and everything, this risk of crude oil price can be diversified, right? So this kind of risk which is specific to one particular company, like in case of Indian Oil, the oil risk is called a unsystematic risk. This is not there in the system, it is only there for a particular company. Fine. And beta is a measure of the other kind of risks, which is systematic risk, which is undiversifiable. You cannot reduce this kind of risk, it will always remain. So maybe you are investing in Indian Oil as well, you are investing in, say, TCS also, you are investing in Reliance as well, HDFC Bank, you have multiple stocks in your portfolio. However, tomorrow maybe if COVID takes place and everything shuts down, COVID fourth wave happens, I hope not, but if it does, then the entire markets will crash and this kind of risk cannot be diversified. Yeah, maybe there is global recession, then this kind of risk will not be diversified no matter how many stocks you are holding in your portfolio, right? So this equation gives you the relation between risk, which is denoted by the systematic risk beta, and the expected returns. So as an investor, if you are investing in more risky assets, you would expect to get higher returns, but you will not be compensated for which kind of risk? You will not be compensated for which kind of risk? Unsystematic. You will only expect to get compensation for the risk that is there in the system, because the other risk you can easily diversify. Other risk you can diversify, na? Uska kyun compensation? You won't expect to get any kind of compensation for that kind of risk. So the risk that is there in the market that you cannot diversify, no matter how many securities you are holding in your portfolio, that is systematic risk, and this gives you the relation. So this is at the heart of finance. You should know the relation between risk and returns. And basically, suppose I am investing in FDs, which is practically zero risk, fixed deposit mein. So how much return will I expect to get by this equation? FD में कर रहे हैं, how much return? RF आएगा ना, क्योंकि because beta would be how much? Zero. There is practically zero risk, so you would expect to get RF, risk-free return. But if I am investing in Nifty 50 companies, all 50 companies, I am investing in the index Nifty 50. How much return will I expect to get? The beta would be how much in that case? 1. Okay. So maybe right now 5% is the risk-free rate, FD पे rate जो मिल रहा है approximately, या 10-year bond पे जो मिल रहा है. So I am just telling you because this is basics of finance, you should know, and it's also connected to international investments as well. Whenever companies are looking to invest, they also need to look at all these aspects of risk and returns. So basically, if you are investing in maybe risk-free rate is 5% right now. Return on 10-year bonds, return on T-bills and all, return on fixed deposits is 5%. And by looking at the previous 30 years data, you have found that Nifty has given a return of 15%. So in this case, if you invest in FD, you would expect to get how much? 5%. But if you are investing in Nifty 50 companies, how much would you expect to get? Beta would be 1. So you would get 10 plus 5, 15, which is equal to the market returns that you've calculated by looking at previous year data. Now consider, suppose you have a basket of stocks, your portfolio is having a beta of 2. It is twice as risky as the market. Your portfolio is 2 times as risky compared to the Nifty 50 volatility. Then you would expect to get how much? 25? 2 plus 10, 2 into 10, 20 plus 5, 25. Now consider you are holding a portfolio which is half as risky as the market. Half as risky compared to the market. 10%. Fine. So now you have got the broader picture. If you invest in FDs, you would expect 5%. If you invest in a portfolio which is half as risky compared to the market, you would be expecting 10%. If it is equally risky to the market, you would be expecting 15%. If it is twice as risky compared to the market, you will be expecting 25%. This is your expected return. But actually what you get is not equal to this. Fine. So risk and returns, this is the basic thing I wanted to tell you. So companies, when they are also looking to invest internationally, they will be looking at this kind of relation between risk and returns. What kind of risk they are taking based on not only this beta, which is a measure of systematic risk, they will also consider the beta for the country risk. कि उस country में कितना risk है, ये भी देखेंगे वो. You do not, maybe, do you have that subject called business analysis and valuation, corporate CAV, corporate analysis valuation? Do you have that? अच्छा, okay, BBA में होता है, उसमें valuation में ना, you have this kind of thing as well. Like when you are investing internationally, you need to consider this country risk premium as well. This is the market risk premium. This RM minus RF is the market risk premium. But in that case, you will also consider the country risk premium based on different factors, based on the volatility of the stocks within that country, based on the geopolitical factors, everything. By looking at previous year data, you can calculate the country risk premium. So companies, when they are looking to invest abroad, they will consider this kind of thing. They will look at what security I am investing in, what kind of risk is it carrying, systematic risk, and also they'll add to this the country risk premium. Fine. And what do the returns depend upon? The expectation of returns will depend on RF as well, right? तो RF किस चीज़ पे depend करेगा? If you are investing, if you are looking to invest abroad, what will this RF depend on? Okay. इन्फ्लेशन क्या, राइट? तो इंटरेस्ट रेट्स क्या चल रहे हैं उस इकोनॉमी में, उस पर डिपेंड करेगा ना. इंटरेस्ट रेट्स क्या चल रहे हैं, एंड इंटरेस्ट रेट्स किस चीज़ पे डिपेंड करते हैं? इंटरेस्ट रेट्स किस चीज़ पे डिपेंड करते हैं? इन्फ्लेशन पे डिपेंड करते हैं. आर यू अवेयर ऑफ दिस रिलेशन बिटवीन इन्फ्लेशन एंड इंटरेस्ट रेट्स? बेसिक इकोनॉमिक्स हैं. व्हाट इज द रिलेशन? इंटरेस्ट, इफ डायरेक्ट, इफ इन्फ्लेशन इज हाई, what will happen to the interest rates? What will RBI do to the interest rates if inflation is high? हाई करेगी. क्यों? कौन सा इंटरेस्ट रेट हाई करेगी? नहीं. What kind of interest rate what kind of rate do they control? RBI. वो लोन का रेट तो कंट्रोल नहीं करते ना कि लोन पे किस रेट पे लोन देना है. They control what kind of rate? Repo rate, reverse repo rate. Along with this, they also use CRR, SLR to control the money supply in the economy. So if inflation is very high, this is basic economics, you should be knowing all this. If inflation is very high, RBI will increase the repo rate, which will make the cost of borrowing higher. मतलब कि जो banks को जिस rate पे loan वो funds मिल रहे हैं from RBI, that is higher. Repo rate is the rate at which RBI lends to the banks, commercial banks. So if RBI increases repo rates, the funds will become more expensive for the banks and they will lend out at higher rates. So corporates will take loans at less loans because the loans have become more expensive. So if Ambani ji is taking less loans, he will produce less goods and commodities, goods and services. If lower goods and services are being produced, that will lead to less employment, lower salaries, lower purchasing power, lower demand, and lower demand will reduce the prices. Inflation will reduce. So if inflation is higher, central banks raise interest rates to make the cost of borrowing higher, which reduces production, which reduces employment, which reduces purchasing power, which reduces demand and brings down prices. This is how the system works. Now, if you are looking to invest abroad in a particular company or in a particular country, you would be considering what are the interest rates over there. This would be one of the most important factors, and interest rates would depend on the inflation that is going on in that country. So compared to US, are interest rates higher in India or lower? Lower? Higher? US से कम है interest rates. What is the risk-free rate in US right now? It's around जो मतलब गवर्नमेंट 10-year गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड में मिलता है या टी बिल में मिलता है 91 डे टी बिल में मिलता है या FDs में मिलता है. What kind of rate of return do you get if you are investing in US bonds? 2-3% बस. And in India, if you invest in government bonds, 10-year bonds or in FDs and all, how much do you get? 6%, 7%, है ना? तो इंडिया में हाई है compared to US. Why is it higher? Okay. Okay. Developed country है तो उससे क्या फर्क पड़ेगा? Why are interest rates lower in developed countries compared to developing countries? Loans. ओके वहाँ पे अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ फंड ज़्यादा है ना. एक तो ये भी है अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ फंड्स इफ दे आर मोर, सप्लाई ऑफ फंड्स बढ़ गए तो इंटरेस्ट रेट्स अपने आप कम हो जाएंगे, है ना. तो बेसिकली इंटरेस्ट रेट्स इन डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज और ऑल्सो बिकॉज ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन. इन्फ्लेशन इज जनरली हायर इन डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज कंपेयर टू डेवलप्ड नेशंस. तो एंड डू यू नो एनी कंट्री विच इज हैविंग नेगेटिव इंटरेस्ट रेट्स और जीरो इंटरेस्ट रेट्स? ऐसा भी होता है. आर यू अवेयर? जापान है, राइट. जापान में नेगेटिव इंटरेस्ट रेट्स हैं. सो अब जीरो हो गए हैं, पहले नेगेटिव थे. तो एंड व्हाई डू यू नो एनी कंट्री विच इज कंटिन्यूसली बीन इन रिसेशन फॉर द प्रीवियस 20-30 years? 30 years. इट्स जापान ओनली. जापान की इकोनॉमी हैज़ बिन कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग फॉर द प्रीवियस 30 years. मतलब इंडिया में जैसे 5-6% का ग्रोथ चल रहा है, 7% का चल रहा है, यूएस में 2-3% का चल रहा है, वहाँ जापान में ऑलमोस्ट ज़ीरो और नेगेटिव ग्रोथ है. एंड वन ऑफ द रीजन्स वाई दिस इज हैपनिंग इज द डेमोग्राफी. जैसे इंडिया की जो एवरेज एज है, डू यू नो हाउ मच इज इट? हाँ ऐसे 28-29 के अराउंड. यूएस में इट्स अराउंड 37-38 एंड जापान में इट्स मोर देन 45. तो जब इतनी एजेड पॉपुलेशन है, दे विल ऑब्वियसली बी लेस एक्टिव, दे विल प्रोड्यूस लेस गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज. फाइन. तो उस वजह से वहाँ पे इतनी ग्रोथ नहीं हो रही थी पिछले 20-30 सालों में. एंड इवन द स्टॉक मार्केट्स हैव बिन डाउन इन जापान. सो जो जैसे इंडिया में अगर एक बार जो ऑल टाइम हाई बनता है, इफ़ द मार्केट क्रैशेस फ्रॉम दैट पॉइंट, जैसे 2008 में हुआ था, क्रैश हुआ था, या अभी रिसेंटली भी हुआ था, डू यू नो मार्केट्स में क्रैश हुआ था कोरोना के टाइम पे. कोविड मार्च अप्रैल 2020 में हुआ था, 40% मार्केट क्रैश हुई थी. सिमिलरली जो 2008 क्राइसिस हुआ था, उस टाइम पे 60% मार्केट क्रैश हुई थी फ्रॉम ऑल टाइम हाई. तो कितना टाइम लगता है मार्केट को रिकवर होने में? जनरली 6 मंथ. जैसे कोविड के बाद तो 6 महीने के अंदर ही हो गई थी, 3-4 महीने में हो गई थी. उस 2008 में इट टुक अराउंड 1.5 year टू रिकवर. बट जापानीज मार्केट्स ऑल टाइम हाई दे हिट इन 1990s वॉज ब्रोकन इन 2021. मतलब 30 साल तक वो ऑल टाइम हाई ब्रेक ही नहीं हुआ. तो जनरली हम कहते हैं ना कि इफ़ यू आर इन्वेस्टिंग इन एक्विटीज़ हैव अ लॉन्ग टर्म टाइम होराइजन. उसका रीज़न यही है कि कभी कभार बहुत नेगेटिव रिटर्न्स भी मिलते रहते हैं काफ़ी टाइम तक. तो किसी ने 1990s में इन्वेस्ट किया होता जापान में, उसको अभी तक ज़ीरो रिटर्न मिला होता. ऐसा भी हो सकता है, इट कैन हैपन. बट जनरली स्पीकिंग इन मोस्ट ऑफ द कंट्रीज it normally does not take more than 1-2 years to reach all time highs from the crash, after the crash. तो इसीलिए हम कहते हैं कि 3 साल का व्यू हो तो then you can go for equities if you have a time horizon of more than 3 years. Fine. So we were talking about interest rates and inflation and all. US में generally, and Japan mein it's around 0% right now. So most of the developed countries have lower interest rates compared to developing nations. But then should everyone in US invest in India because interest rates are higher? मतलब सबको ही Indian bonds दे देने चाहिए? Don't you think? If somebody is staying in US, they can invest in US bonds or in US FDs, they'll get 2-3%. But if they invest in Indian bonds, they will get 6%. Don't you think that is they should do that? क्या क्यों नहीं करना चाहिए? मतलब सारा पैसा नहीं, आई एम आस्किंग इंडिविजुअली, कंट्री के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से नहीं, इंडिविजुअली इफ यू आर स्टेइंग इन यूएस यू शुड बी इन्वेस्टिंग एवरीथिंग इन इंडिया. हाँ, ओके, स्टेबिलिटी इज़ वन थिंग, राइट, दैट इज़ वन इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग. कि जैसे यहाँ पे अगर इफ़ दे फील देयर इज़ लॉट ऑफ अनसर्टेनिटी, दे वुड US बॉन्ड्स आर कंसिडर्ड टू बी वेरी सेफ. कभी डिफ़ॉल्ट होता नहीं है वहाँ पे, और जनरली मोस्ट डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज़ में नहीं होता है. देयर आर एक्सेप्शंस. डू यू नो एनी एक्सेप्शन टू दिस? आई टोल्ड यू. हाँ हाँ हाँ. आई एम आस्किंग यू विच इज देयर एनी कंट्री, आई एम आस्किंग यू अबाउट द कंट्री. कौन सी कंट्री ऐसी है जिसने अपने सॉवरेन बॉन्ड्स पे डिफ़ॉल्ट किया हो, कि अपने जो गवर्नमेंट भी डेट लेती है ना बाय इशूइंग बॉन्ड्स एंड ऑल, तो अब ऐसी कोई कंट्री है जिसने अपनी गवर्नमेंट डेट नहीं रीपे कर पाई हो? पाकिस्तान. ओके, पाकिस्तान के साथ हुआ है. सिमिलरली कोई डेवलप्ड कंट्री में हुआ है ऐसा? अमेरिका ने लोन ले रखा है पर वो फिर भी कर लेते हैं पेमेंट, क्योंकि वो और लोन ले लेते हैं उसको रीपे करने के लिए. एक लोन को रीपे करने के लिए वो दूसरा लोन ले लेते हैं. तो देयर डेट टू GDP इज़ मोर देन 100%. इंडिया में इट्स अराउंड 60-70%, उनका 100% से ज़्यादा है, 150% के आसपास है. तो बट देर आर कंट्रीज इन यूरोप लाइक ग्रीस, लाइक इटली, दैट हैव डिफॉल्टेड ऑन देयर डेट पेमेंट्स. जब 2008 क्राइसिस हुआ था, ग्लोबल रिसेशन, उसका इम्पैक्ट यूरोपियन कंट्रीज़ पे भी आया था. और यूरोपियन एक डेट क्राइसिस हुआ था, सॉवरेन डेट क्राइसिस, वेयर कंट्रीज लाइक इटली एंड ग्रीस स्टार्टेड डिफॉल्टिंग ऑन देयर डेट पेमेंट्स. उनके जो बॉन्ड्स थे, गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड्स, उनकी रेटिंग्स होती हैं, डू यू नो? उनकी रेटिंग्स होती हैं AAA रेटेड और AA रेटेड और ये सब. तो उसकी वो जंक बॉन्ड्स बन गए थे. दे बिकेम जंक बॉन्ड्स. नोबडी वाज विलिंग टू इन्वेस्ट इन इटली एंड ग्रीस बॉन्ड्स बिकॉज दे हैड स्टार्टेड डिफॉल्टिंग. So this can happen, but generally speaking, the developed countries are considered to be more secure. So that is one reason why they will not opt for India. What else do you think? Why will somebody sitting in US not go for Indian bonds? Or why? हाँ? उसकी वैल्यू कम है. So exchange rate is one more thing that they will consider. Exchange rate अगर depreciation होते रहेगा तो उसका impact भी पड़ेगा, right? तो they will consider that as well. Plus anything else they will look at. एक तो uncertainty हो गई, एक ये हो गया. What else will they consider? एक restrictions बहुत सारे हैं. If you want to invest abroad, you cannot straight away buy Indian government bonds. But if there is a big institution, they'll find it easier. Maybe there is a big investment bank like Goldman Sachs, or Morgan Stanley, or JP Morgan and all. They will be easily able to invest in Indian bonds. Or maybe if some government internationally wants to invest in Indian bonds, they can do that. But individual investors will find it very difficult since there are many restrictions to the flow of capital. So that is one more reason why people cannot easily invest in other countries abroad. Fine. और इंडिया के लिए क्या ये फ़ायदा हो रहा है? मतलब if you are staying in India and you are getting 6% interest, and maybe your friend is sitting in US, he is getting 3% interest only. So you will think you are getting richer compared to him. नहीं? Why not? Why not? वैल्यू कम हो रही है. Why? Because of depreciation of the currency. एक तो ये हो रहा है कि हमारी वैसे ही पिछले 30 सालों में कंपेयर करो तो हमारी वैल्यू 1/4 रह गई है. तो अगर if he was sitting in US, he would have become 4 times richer compared to us. तो एक तो वो एक्सचेंज रेट का डिप्रिसिएशन इज वन प्रॉब्लम. व्हाट एल्स डू यू थिंक? If you are getting 6%, he is getting only 3%. Why are you not getting richer? Because of inflation as well. Inflation in India is 6, 7, 8%, while in US it's around 2-3% only. तो अब nominal interest rate और real interest rate में difference होना चाहिए ना. You must be knowing that real interest rate, how is it different from nominal? Do you know? हाँ हाँ हाँ, तो क्या डिफरेंस हुआ? व्हाट डू यू एडजस्ट इन दिस? इन्फ्लेशन. तो इन्फ्लेशन, रियल इंटरेस्ट रेट इज नॉमिनल माइनस इन्फ्लेशन रेट. तो अब इंडिया में इफ यू आर कंपेयरिंग विद समबडी हु सिटिंग इन यूएस, यू विल हैव टू लुक एट व्हाट इन रियल टर्म्स व्हाट आर यू गेटिंग आफ्टर एडजस्टिंग फॉर इन्फ्लेशन. तो रियल टर्म्स में तो वैसे ही कुछ नहीं मिल रहा और प्लस डेप्रिसिएशन और हो रहा है. सो यू आर गेटिंग पुअरर एवरी सिंगल डे. Fine. So the last thing I'll do is basically tell you how companies can invest abroad or they can raise funds abroad. उसके बाद हम next time we'll discuss in detail this unit, unit 3. Unit 1 is almost done. It's अगर कोई doubts होगा you can get back to me if you go through the PPT, go through the book as well if you want to read some particular topic. If you face any problem, get back to me. We'll discuss it in the next class. But next time we will be discussing unit 3 in more detail. Now tell me, if certain company wants to raise funds abroad, what is the way? Maybe Reliance or ICICI Bank wants to raise funds from US markets. Can they do that? Okay. क्या होते हैं वो? ICMR? हाँ. Okay. You are confusing little bit, but ठीक है. Anyone else who's heard of these terms, ADR, GDR? Vaibhav, any idea? अच्छा, हम ट्रेड करते हैं. ओके ओके. बेसिकली GDR एंड ADR, अमेरिकन डिपॉजिटरी रिसीट्स, ग्लोबल डिपॉजिटरी रिसीट्स, ये होते हैं कि दीज आर वेज इन विच कंपनी इन इंडिया कैन रेज फंड्स बाय लिस्टिंग इटसेल्फ इन द US मार्केट्स. ठीक है. तो अगर रिलायंस मे बी इट वांट्स टू रेज फंड्स फ्रॉम US इन्वेस्टर्स, तो एक तरीका तो ये सकता है कि फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट लेकर के आओ इंडिया में थ्रू FII, FPI. दैट इज़ वन वे. अदर वे कुड बी कि वहीं पे उसी एक्सचेंज में लिस्ट हो जाओ. तो उसके लिए या तो वो वहीं पे एक अपना एंटिटी सेट करें और वहाँ पे अलग से लिस्ट करें. अदर वे टू लिस्ट ADR और GDR. वहाँ पे अमेरिका में होगा तो ADR होगा, ग्लोबली में भी यूरोपियन कंट्रीज़ में इफ़ दे वांट टू रेज कैपिटल फ्रॉम यूरोपियन कैपिटल मार्केट्स, मे बी उन्हें वहाँ से जर्मनी की मार्केट से डैक्स से लेना है, या उन्हें FTSE जो UK की मार्केट है वहाँ से लेना है, या CAC से लेना है जो वहाँ की है फ्रांस की. तो इफ़ दे वांट टू रेज फंड्स फ्रॉम European capital markets, they will go for GDRs. If they want to raise funds from US markets, they will go for ADRs. Basically, these are similar to stocks which are traded on exchanges, but these are for international companies. So maybe ICICI Bank का जैसे ADR है already. If you see ICICI Bank ADR is already listed on US exchanges. So they are raising funds from US. Similarly, other companies can also, if they want to raise funds abroad from US investors or from other international investors, they can opt for ADRs or GDRs. ठीक है. तो and ADR, GDR all come under a broader term called यूरो इशू. यूरो इशू बोलते हैं इनको. यूरो इशू के अंडर ये सब आते हैं ADR, GDR और फॉरेन कन्वर्टेबल बॉन्ड्स. ये तीनों चीज़ें हैं यूरो इशूज़ के अंदर. इन्हें वी कॉल देम यूरो इशूज़. Fine. So euro issues comprise of these ADRs, GDRs and also foreign convertible bonds. वो भी similar हैं. Do you know what are convertible bonds? हाँ, वो शेयर में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं, उसमें ऑप्शन होता है. तो फॉरेन कन्वर्टेबल बॉन्ड, फॉरेन करेंसी कन्वर्टेबल बॉन्ड्स होते हैं, FCC भी बोलते हैं उनको. तो उसमें यू इंस्टेड ऑफ रेजिंग फंड्स इन इंडिया यू आर रेजिंग फंड्स अब्रॉड. सेम थिंग, जैसे कन्वर्टेबल बॉन्ड्स इंडिया में इशू कर सकते हैं, वैसे ही आप US में इशू कर रहे हो. इंडियन कंपनी अगर कर रही है तो इट विल बी कॉल्ड फॉरेन करेंसी कन्वर्टेबल बॉन्ड्स. ऑल ऑफ दीज कम अंडर दिस ब्रॉडर टर्म कॉल्ड यूरो इशू. Fine. So next time we'll go into details of this unit 3. और बाकी यूनिट 2 and 4 आर वेरी इजी. दे आर थ्योरेटिकल इन नेचर की. वो क्या करता है, IMF क्या करता है, उसी की डिटेल्स हैं बहुत सारी, कब फॉर्म हुआ था, ये सब चीज़ें. और बाकी WTO क्या करता है, डिफरेंट रीजनल ट्रेड ग्रुप इनमें क्या क्या है, उनके क्या मेन अरेंजमेंट रहते हैं, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ बेनिफिट्स आर देयर फॉर द पार्टनरिंग कंट्रीज एंड ऑल. So we'll go into details, but that is mostly theoretical. This is unit 1 and 3 requires a little bit of understanding.